I'm just going to try and explain how you can go from a music video to a 7-color measured palette. So the first thing to do is to find a music video that you like, and then find a frame that you're interested in, and then just do a quick screen grab of that. I can't do a screen grab because I'm doing a screen recording, but I've screen grabbed this, I've saved it in a file, and then in Grasshopper I input the location of the file here. So it's Post Malone and Swale Sunflower. So what that does is it imports that picture and it breaks it down into pixels. So there's quite a lot of those. And it uses the RGB data, and just for fun right now I'm going to convert RGB to XYZ, and we'll get a point cloud, which is here. It's a bit slow, but it's kind of cool. So it's repositioned all of the pixels according to the RGB data, but the RGB is actually reimagined as XYZ. So that's what it's bringing in. We don't need a point cloud. I'll just turn that off. So we'll bring all those points in, and then we create a bounding box around them. So how I've created a palette is to balance two algorithms out. One of them's called medium cut algorithm, which I'll explain in a minute, and the other one is like a nearest neighbor algorithm. So it's a balance between recognizing the diversity of the colors that are in a picture and trying to reduce those down without losing any of the details, because a lot of palette creation software that you can come across, like on websites, it tends to lose small amounts of color, but we know that small amounts of color can be really important. Little color pops in an image are just as important as the big background swathes of color. So in a medium cut algorithm, it draws a bounding box around all of the points, and then it does find the longest edge. And then it divides the longest edge in half, and then it creates two bounding boxes around the points that exist in those two areas. So you end up with this. And so the next thing that it does, of course, is it does it again. It finds the longest edge from these two boxes and it divides that in half again and creates a new bounding box around the 2 point clouds. And then it does it again. So you might be able to see by now that it's not losing the diversity of the colours. We've not lost any points, but we've reduced the colours down to these 4 boxes. So we're not losing diversity, we're just simplifying things. So what I'm going to do is change this to sort of like 250, something like that. So 250 gives us a nice palette to work with on the nearest neighbour. So those are all the boxes that we've got, which is cool. It's looking pretty cool. These would be nice little objects. So the next thing, which runs off the evolutionary solver, is we choose 7 boxes from the crowd of boxes, and then we work out how representative those 7 boxes are of all of the boxes, and that's done by measuring the nearest neighbour boxes, which might be a little bit hard to explain, but for example, this box here is near all of these other boxes. So if we choose this box, we can then measure how much of the original point cloud is in its neighbouring boxes, and that gives us an indication of how important that is. So it's a slightly weird balance between keeping the diversity of the colours but trying to reduce that down to 7 of the most important boxes. So I'll just turn this off because it gets a bit. So these 2 components I made myself just to speed things up a little bit and make the wiring less crazy. Oh, how strange, it's still showing this even though I've turned it off. So once it's chosen the 7 colours, it measures the number of points from the point cloud that are in there, and then it stacks them up like this. There's a little outputs here that output little rectangles, and it creates a palette. So we can see what happens when we run the solver. So we set the solver to minimize. We turn on the viewport, which is going to be slowing it down, but at least we can see what's going on, and we start the solver. And as with all evolutionary solvers, it tries a lot of random things at the beginning, and then it learns from those and focuses in on what it thinks is the best palette solution. And the numbers that you can see there are the distance between the 7 cubes. So again, it's trying to do a balance between keeping the diversity of the boxes but simplifying them down just to 7. And I did a lot of experimentations with different ways of doing this, and this slightly odd combination of these 2 algorithms seemed to produce the best results. And the best could be defined as when you look at the palette and you look back at the original image, you think, oh, that's a good representation of that image. None of the detail has been lost, but it has been simplified. So I'll jump forward a couple of minutes and I'll show you what the solution is. it's finished, and it's decided that this is the best balance between the median cut boxes and the nearest neighbour clusters of boxes, and it's got it down to a distance of 6,671. Not sure what that means, but I think it looks pretty cool. Interestingly, you can also go back through and see some different solutions which can be quite different. I mean, they're all quite nice. This one is supposedly the best one. The second best one is slightly different. So, as with all evolutionary solvers, there isn't a right answer. There's just lots of good answers. So you can choose which one you like. I'll just stick with the one that it thinks is the best. What I'm going to do is save the information that is created. So we just collect all of the bits and pieces of information. So we want to know the name of the file, we want to know the 7 colours that are shown here on the left, and then the amounts of each colour. And I've got this little text file component. When I press that, it writes that information to a file on my desktop. I think I set it up for a desktop. So, and that's it. So I don't know if we could just go back and see what we think. I mean, yeah, this looks pretty good. I have done this with some pictures, and I've realised, it's made me realise that some colours were actually in the original picture, which I hadn't noticed. Like, I hadn't noticed this car before. It's not showing it up too well, but I think that that's where the yellow is coming from. Anyway, hopefully that explains it a little bit more.